and we are going to be presenting V for Vendetta. We have three things today, and the first one is the magazine, which we will be presenting briefly. So I am Carissa Mendes.
I am Risa Coutinho.
And I am Lynn Dias. I am Jennifer Fernando.
With your roll number, as if you
AU.
got a sheet from last year, it's like, I don't know.
Okay, my name is Jennifer Fernando, AU 2101-310. So,
I'm Lynn Dias and my roll number is AU 2101272.
I'm Carissa Mendes, and my roll number is AU2101261.
I am Risa Coutinho and my roll number is AU 2101208.
And today we'll be presenting three elements from our graphic novel V for Vendetta. So the first one is a magazine, which we'll be presenting briefly. Then we have flashcards. Again, we will be presenting them briefly because of a time restraint. And the third one is an activity, which we will be explaining later. So the magazine was sent to you, and most of this has everything in detail. That's the authors, the two authors, that's Alan Moore and David Lloyd. And then that's about the book. Then we have the characters. So the main protagonist of the novel is V, and his face is not shown throughout. He's a masked vigilante, and he wears a Guy Fawkes mask. There's Evie Hammond, who's also who's a female protagonist and also V's love interest in the graphic novel. Then we have Derek Armand. He heads the fingers for the government. The government is the Nosfire government, and it's headed by Adam Susan. So the fingers work for the government, the fascist government, and it is a fascist government. Then we have Eric Finch, who works as the member of the nose for the government. So most of the officials for the government are named after body parts: eyes, nose, ears, fingers. And then we have Luis Brotero, who is the voice of London, who talks, who convinces people through his voice on the radio. It airs out every day. And Fate is a computer system that actually governs the whole country.
So as you all know that V and Evie had a very complicated relationship, as in V saved her life and they went on living with each other for some time. But then later on you see that the things were complicated between them because she started falling in love with V, and it was not shown or nothing really justified that they were falling in love or they were falling for each other. But then their relationship started getting a little toxic, maybe because of how she how she lost her family for first, and then she started getting attracted to V as a father. She started taking him there was someone to look out for me and stuff, and then she fell in love also, not forgetting they kiss, and then it was like a little complicated relationship they had between each other, but yeah.
Okay, so basically in the novel, the place Larkill is brought up multiple times. Now Larkill is something very similar to how the Nazis had the concentration camps, but instead of actually gassing people and killing them with gas, what they did was the government, that is the fascist government, would send homosexuals, people who were not English, and minorities basically, saying that it was for their protection, to these places where illegal medical basically experiments were done on them, and he was one of the people who was here. This is from where basically the birth of V took place, and they were tortured, and if they did not react well to the medication or the virus that was given, they were basically executed on the spot. So this is one of the birthplaces. This is the origin stories, or every villain has an origin story. So this was V's origin story. The people who were in charge of the Larkill resettlement, what they would call it, camp, is Dr. Delia Surridge, who was the main head scientist who led the whole illegal experiment. We have a Commander Louis Prothero, who later becomes the voice of London. And we have Bishop Lilliman, who was basically there for spiritual guidance.
Okay, so coming to the themes of the novel, the entire novel is centered around the theme of fascism versus anarchism. So one of the main theme is fascism. The British is a fascist society. So it has the five political body. That is the head, who is the leader. That is Adam Susan. Then we have fingers who enforce law in the country. Then we have nose who are detectives, and we have eyes who give out propagandas. So these five operations of the state, they are not really very straightforward. They are very corrupt. They perform heinous crimes for the leader, and as a result, you have the whole implication of the fascist society where the freedom of people are curtailed, they are monitored, and they are under surveillance all the time, 24/7. So coming to revenge, the entire plot, the entire vendetta of V is revenge for what he went through at Larkhill concentration camp. So as Lisa mentioned, the origin story of V, and because he wanted revenge for the people who were at the concentration camp, he goes on to kill the people that were there. He goes on and does terrorist attacks by blowing the parliament and putting fires at the government buildings. And till the last breath, till V's last breath, he still sought for revenge, and he gives on the legacy to V to carry on his revenge. EV. Yeah. Okay, so this is Ashlyn's screen. Ashlyn. Okay, so now we'll move to our next element, the flashcards.
Okay, so this is my flashcard, and so my flashcard is basically going to be explaining the torture of Evie. So Evie she was basically pulled off the streets while she was walking. She was tortured, she was starved, and she was manipulated into a lot of fear. And she was later on also shaved. Her head was entirely shaved. So you can see how she was shaved, and she was basically manipulated and to think that it was the government who was basically doing this, in order to punish her. But later on, she realizes that it was none other than her lover V, who basically tortured her and starved her. And he justifies his behavior by saying that he had to do it so that she would learn how to live without fear. So basically, Evie was born in a fascist state, and the only thing that she knew was how to live in a fascist state. And whenever we told her what he wanted to do against the fascist state, she often questioned him because she did not know anything else other than that. So in order for her to basically, take over his legacy after he would die, he had to, basically kind of manipulate her, yes, in a way to understand that there is a world outside the fascist state, and she had to basically be free from her own thoughts. So that is justification that we gave for torturing her, and basically that.
Okay, so my flashcard is the symbol of V. Now, this has a great significance throughout the graphic novel. The thing is that when V was in the Larkhill camp, the concentration camp, as they previously talked about, V was put in a unit or a cell which was numbered 5. So it's not really, this isn't really V, it's 5. But it's also another Easter egg in this graphic novel is, when you invert the symbol, it forms the symbol of anarchy, which V stands for, the A. Usually, it almost comes to that. And this shows how his revenge for what he went through in Larkhill comes full circle throughout the novel. He leaves his mark everywhere as a form of revenge.
Okay, so my flashcard is the symbolism of mask in the novel. So this is one of the most important symbol in the novel because it's also called as the Guy Fawkes mask, which V is recognized throughout the novel. His identity is not revealed. So when V wears this mask, it gives him two things: anonymity and identity. So when V wears this mask, he abandons his identity, the blood and flesh that is within the mask, and becomes something bigger. He becomes an idea, a symbol. So when he wears this mask, what he was trying to convey is that anyone who wears this mask can embody the spirit of rebellion and become something great. Just like how he did all the attacks on the people, and it gave him power to do so because the man within the mask wouldn't have the courage to do so. So there's this quote that V quotes. You wear a mask for so long, you forget who you were, the person beneath it. So what we means is the mask is an embody of the person that he could not be. So the mask gives him the courage to do so. So even when he was dying, we says this quote, did you think to kill me? There's only flesh and there's no flesh or blood within this cloak. There's only an idea, and ideas are bulletproof. So what we's trying to say is that when a man dies, but the symbol that he put forth does not die. So it doesn't matter in the end if V's identity was not given or who the person was behind the mask. What matters was the idea that the mask stood for, the idea the V stood for.
So this is my flesh card. So I'll be talking about evolution of Evie, how she changed, how her character changed. So at the start, if you see, Evie, she was a 16-year-old girl, and she was into prostitution. Now what put her into prostitution was she lost her parents. How she lost her parents, the government, all that thing happened. So she lost her parents, and she was she was all alone. So she got into prostitution. And when she got into prostitution, she was very scared of the people. She didn't know how to face people. And then later on, when she met V, her character changed. V noticed her fears. He noticed that she was very scared, and she used to always stay back. They even had a convo of how she was, how she's scared of the world, how she lost her parents and stuff. And then later on, we tried, as Risa spoke about in her flesh card, she spoke about how Evie was treated, and she thought that the government did that to her, but it was her own lover, V. So that was when she changed. That was how V taught her to, face the society, face everyone, stand on her own feet, and stand for herself and fight for herself. So her character changed from being fear, she was very scared and all. And she totally changed to, she stood for herself and she fought for herself. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so we will begin with our next activity, and it goes like this. So I will be explaining the setting. This is the setting of a courthouse, and you all will be the jury. So let me proceed. So good day, everyone. I would like to inform the audience that you are the jury. On my left, we have the prosecution. We will put forth his arguments against the government, and on my right, we have the defense, who will put forth their arguments to justify themselves in their actions. Let us begin.
Okay, I would like to address the jury and tell them that I believe that the British government authority is corrupt because it infringes the human freedom. The fascist society, it curtails any philosophy of liberalism, and moreover, the corrupt crimes that are committed by the police state, especially the fingermen, are overlooked. So I would like to, Your Honor, I would like to say that the British government is corrupt because it monitors the actions of the people, is surveilled all the time, and basically there is no expression of speech.
Good day, members of the jury. First, let us start by understanding what really fascism is. Fascism is not a government that is led by a dictator, like everybody says, but it is a government that is led by a leader. So, a lot of people think fascist states suppress the people and, suppress their opposition, but that is not true. What we only do is we promote the development and the betterment of the people. Fascism is an efficient state and it increases the effectiveness of the country.
Government is required to maintain law and order. To function a country, it is important. There is no doubt that the government has both good and bad aspects, but as the saying goes, where there is good, there is always evil. To satisfy the other, which is how corruption is born. Sometimes we have a choice, but other times we have to resort to it in order to complete the government, in order for things to work.
With your right-hand organization, Fire has established a fascist order that quickly exterminating people of the ethnic minorities, the radicals, and the homosexuals. Freedom no longer exists in this country. And because this tyrannical Fire rules the country as party dictatorship. What do you say about terror and abuse that you've done at Lakhiel?
First of all, Nosfire does not rule through dictatorship, but it is only a party that determines what posts and positions and authority people have. I want the country to realize that the world stands on the edge of oblivion. I want every man, every woman, and every child to understand how close we are to chaos. I want everybody to remember that they need the government.
Your Honor, we is a symbol of terrorism. Who killed my associates, Dr. Dedia, Lewis Prathro, and the Bishop Lilliman, not forgetting the bombing of the House of Parliament and the takeover the news house. All of these acts are acts of violence and terrorism. And it was my duty to hunt and arrest our responsible who did it, who was we. He was responsible of everything and his associates. So it was my responsibility to do so.
Your Honor, I would like to ask the opposition to answer the question she dodged. Where are the people at Lakhiel now? Yes, they aren't alive because you killed them by your experiment. I was the witness of all that, and I am here to take revenge of it, and I stand for the anarchy government.
The past is in the past. The government I lead is the only way to maintain order and security in a world where there is chaos and danger around every corner. Surveillance and control over people 24/7 is necessary because that is how we protect people from acts of terrorism and anarchy. The government is the ultimate authority, and anyone who stands up in opposition of the government will be considered to be a threat and will be eliminated in order to maintain order and stability. The prosecution is seen as a terror who seek to destroy the government and the peace that we built in this entire world. His actions are nothing more but acts of terrorism, and I believe that the force we use in order to stop the acts of terrorism is totally justified.
Manjuli, I would like to close my statement by saying that my act of terrorism was not terrorism, but a mere way to dismantle the fascist government that only cares for a totalitarian government. It is a product of the tyrannical British government, Nosfire. The people cannot be surveillance all the time and be monitored for their activities. The freedom of speech and expression should be brought back to the people of London. And we must eradicate the fascist government, a government that isn't biased on the Christian white people. Thank you.
I would now like the jury to deliberate and make its vote. Those in favor of the government, please raise your hands. Those in favor of the prosecution, please raise your hands. The verdict shall be given in a moment. The jury has made its decision, and I, Fate, shall give the verdict. The decision made by the jury is feeble at most, and taken into account mankind's history, it shows that man almost never learns from his mistakes. Freedom and individuality breed chaos, and chaos leads to war. For a peaceful and secure future for the people must put their faith into the government, which does not sway its ways for petty things such as emotions. A sure and unbiased government which provides safety and security in exchange of merely a simple control over their citizens. It is the most efficient and needed form of authority. Therefore, the verdict stands. The government shall function as is, and it continue to the best of its abilities. We shall be punished for these acts of terrorism. Thank you.
Okay, so the point of this activity basically was to show how the government, that London was ruled by a supercomputer, Fate, and it was ruled in favor of the government, although the jury ruled in favor of me, which basically goes to show that fascism was prevalent in England at that time, in the novel. Thank you.
Yeah, questions? The class can ask questions in terms of the presentation, the three elements that they have put forward, or any information that they have given, because you're going to be now the audience for CA3. So if you were standing in front of them and you heard all this information, what would you ask them?
Isn't the crowd will come like a comics day?
Yeah. So imagine if you were listening to some of this, because now all the information that you're presenting today, in some way or the other, you're going to be presenting in CA3 for
The
Comics Day.
activities for comics day.
No,
No.
but the information will be there. So the information that they've given you through the act, for example, will be used in their presentation when they're talking at their stall, right? So you can ask any question that you feel that you can ask about the activities for now, the flashcards or the court scene, etc., etc., or the information that they've provided, or something that you may have understood or not understood. Whatever. Anything? Okay, thank you.